Welcome to Cultivated Live for, I forgot to remember the date, August 6th. Tuesday, August 6th. It is. We're after a long weekend here in Canada. I am on my porch, obviously, as you can see, with Michael Perron from MTL Cannabis. And we try to do this every day, 10 a.m. Eastern, not from my porch necessarily, but online streaming through our LinkedIn channel and our YouTube channel. So welcome if you are each of those. And follow us and subscribe to us on LinkedIn and on YouTube. Michael is the CEO of MTL Cannabis. We wanted to have him on the porch because we want to talk about the company. We want to talk about the state of the industry here in Canada. We want to talk about the history of the company and any insights you can shed light on as it relates to this industry. And if you hear noise, first of all, it's raining on the porch. Second of all, there's a little bit of construction in the front of the house, neither of which I planned. But thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It's awesome.
I tell people that if they can show up on the porch by 10 a.m., they can be on the show.
Good.
I was going to have you on the show anyway. And then I just said, why don't you just come to the porch? I know you're down the street. Give us a little bit of background about you, and then we'll get into MTL because your history in the industry spans longer than most, or maybe any.
For sure. No, a little background about myself. So I've been in the industry over 10 years now.
But you're only 12 years old.
Only 12 years old. Turn 13 next month. But I'm very happily retired accountant. So I originally started my career as an accountant working at PricewaterhouseCoopers and Deloitte between US and Canada, and then spent a majority of my career at M&P here in Canada and working in all different forms of consulting and advisory. And really by happenstance, I had a couple friends that were ex-MMAR guys that were going to take a run at this LP thing. And they're like, oh, could you help us with a business plan or an application? And so I started doing that just on the side, just to help them out, just helping friends out. Mm-hmm. And then M&P at the time, it was very fortuitous that the head partners, Glenn Fraser and Ruth Raza and David Danziger, they went to the board and they got permission to be the very first professional services company to support the cannabis industry. And this must have been 2014, 2015. And they essentially came to us and said, we're going to do all the audit, tax, and IPO work. Could you guys do everything else? And, that was an amazing opportunity. And so at that point, you had an opportunity to work with every company you can imagine at that time in the industry, working with provincial distribution on how they're going to roll out the regs at that time, because that's when the federal government just gave that opportunity to the provinces. You name a company, business model type, US, Canada, we were the only place in town to work with them. So it's an amazing opportunity. And then I went to MediPharm Labs, the very first extraction company in Canada, the only one under the ACMPR. Help Canada rewrite the books on what a license processor looks like. I did that for a few years, and then, believe it or not, I left the industry. I believe it.
There's been some ups and downs. You left on a down. You left on an up, but the industry took it down.
It was, anyone who's been in this industry knows how hard it can be, and it's a challenge at the best of times, and it takes a lot to be in this industry, and it doesn't matter what vertical you in, you have to be tough. You have to have grit. You have to want to be in this space and push through it. And then, the right opportunity came with the founders of MTL Cannabis, and now here we are.
Yeah, and talk a little bit about that, because MTL was not the first in the market for sure, but when they came into market, it was all about premium flower, and it really resonated with consumers. And they have not a cult following, but people love the weed. That is for sure. And then it grew, and then talk a little bit about the history of MTL, and then when you came to it, sort of what the focus is now that you're there.
For sure, no, and that's the one thing. Having been in the industry as long as I have, and yourself as well, is even in the early days of the big rush, the two parts of the supply chain that were always forgotten were the actual product, the quality of it, and the consumer. It was all about how big the stock can be, how much we can promote, the idea of the total addressable market of Lesotho at some point, or whatever people were putting in a pitch deck to move the stock. But everyone forgot about quality product and the consumer. And that, at the end of the day, if you don't take care of that, you don't have a business. And so that is really where I frankly just built a relationship with the founders, Rich and Mitch of MTL Cannabis. And they were guys who, they've known the space forever. They've been in the MMAR world. They understand, they had a hydroponic supply store. So not only did they understand and put in the 10,000 hours to figure out what good quality product looks like, they were able to work with all of their clients and understand what pieces of equipment worked, what didn't work, and get those best practices. And for there, they built this business, and it was a private, family business, only focused on just the best quality flower. And that's something that really resonated with me. And that's where I built my relationship with them. And the biggest challenge they had in the early days was, to your point, they did it and they put it out in the streets and they didn't have a sales team. That was the one thing that blew my mind is they had one sales guy, Kern Borrego, who's just, an unbelievable ambassador of the cannabis community. And it was really word of mouth, to your point. Like it was bud tenders saying, I tried this is really good. And it just really was word of mouth at the very beginning of the business. And the biggest challenge they had was growth. They're busting at the seams of the business, and they're always looking for different ways to expand. And, at that time, and this as well as anyone, like there wasn't a lot of great opportunities out there. There's a lot of distressed assets, a lot of companies that had a lot of dog hair on them. There's no perfect, nice, easy turnkey solution. And so they ended up finding an opportunity with a publicly traded company, Canada House Wellness. And they did a very non-traditional, or at least not in Canada, reverse takeover.
Right. And
so that's when I really started getting involved, and my CFO really came into the picture of helping, support that transaction. And it took a lot longer than we anticipated. That was a 2-year project. A lot longer.
Good work for accountants.
It was great work for accountants. And, we were able to close the transaction last year, and we really spent the last year or a year plus integrating all the assets. And, it really was putting together and duct taping together a bunch of different disaggregated businesses and now making them all sing together. And that's one thing where, we're really proud of the work that we've done, because we've taken, MTL, which was traditionally a recreational cannabis brand, just focus on the recreational space. Canada House Wellness had, they had a clinic business, they had a medical distribution business, they had a cultivation facility, they had a whole bunch of other stuff that just didn't really marry and sync together, but we were able to, wind down those pieces of the business that didn't make a lot of sense, and just put everything together in a way that, we always joke, it's like what's good for the goose is good for the gander. One part of the business is doing well, it's bringing up the other parts of it as well. And so that's what we have now at MTL Cannabis Corp.
So talk about what those geese are now.
Okay, so we really have 4 different business lines. So we have our recreational business, which, like you said, it's our MTL Cannabis brands. We're across the country. We're dispensaries all in every province. And then through Canada House, we have Avomedics, which is our medical platform. So we serve primarily veterans, believe it or not. So that really is the DNA of Canada House Wellness. It was founded by veterans. There's so many veterans, spouses of veterans that work for the company. So that's really intertwined with our DNA. It's not something we're doing because we see an opportunity. That's who we are.
Yep.
And so that's based in Pickering. We have over 3,000 veteran patients, in addition to civilians as well. And then we also have the Canada House Clinic Network, which is 12 clinics across Canada, most of them located next to military bases. So you get to get the veterans, right after they get discharged from the military, and they're right there. And then just with my background from MediPharm, we were able to bring in an international business as well. So we're exporting right now. We're currently exporting into Germany, into Portugal, and we have access to other jurisdictions as well that we just need to continue to expand to. And that's something we've been doing for the last year plus is bootstrapping expansion through all of our operating assets.
Talk a bit about where you think having seen the industry over this span of time in different roles, it's not 1.0 or 2.0. Like, where do you think it is in the span of is this the moment when companies like MTL that have relatively smaller footprints, they weren't the largest cannabis companies in the world, they are publicly traded, but not on the scale that sort of the Cannabis of the Roars were, but it is like a right-sized business to serve recreational customers, patients, clinics, and international. Like, I don't know if that's 3.0, 4.5, because it's very difficult to see where we are, but talk about sort of that scope. Like, is this a trend, you think, of putting together the right pieces that make a successful company for a Canadian cannabis business?
I don't think it's necessarily a 2.0, a 3.0, or a trend. I just think it's operators.
Right, just smart.
To be frank, it's, if you look at any other industry, and I've been very fortunate to work in other industries where, you get rewarded for putting together a good operation, and it's really taking care of the people who take care of you. And that's, for us, it's our customers and patients. And like I said, going back to the basis of, it doesn't matter if it's cannabis or any other industry. If you're doing a good quality product that the consumer wants and continues to buy and continues to, because this is, their disposable income. You have to respect their disposable income. And if they go to a store, and it doesn't matter what product they're buying, and they put that disposable income on the table, and they're getting a product that isn't a great experience, they're never going to buy that again.
Right.
And so for us, that's everything to us, is we want to make sure that the consumer is taken care of, our patients are taken care of, because that's our medicine too. And, I look at it as, if my grandmother had bad medicine. It's
Right.
like, that would be unacceptable.
Mhm.
And so for us, we never want to put any of our patients in that position, or recreational consumers to say, hey, you know, I bought this, I spent $50 on a product or a couple of products, and it was a bad investment, because they're never coming back. And for us, it's always taking care of the people who take care of us first, and then your numbers, the financial, that's a lagging indicator.
Mhm.
And so for anyone in any, you know, forget cannabis, in any industry, that's how it should be. And that's, you know, you look at some of the businesses that have been here, and right now we're in a really tough time in our industry. This is the worst capital environment we've ever had in the very limited time we've had in being legal in Canada. But you look at companies like Disney. You know, Disney's been around since the 20s. They've had, forget good years and bad years, they've had good decades and bad decades. And that's coincided with bear and bull markets. And so for us, it's really building resiliency. It's are you building a company that's going to be here in the next 10 years? And that's our goal. That's something that's, you know, we're not worried about. You know, I remember in the early parts of this industry, everyone was building something, you know, we're going to get acquired by Weston, we're going to get acquired by Starbucks, insert company here. No one really built it for the long haul, and that's something that we have that vision for, and we're going to be here for the long haul.
Yeah, and I wonder, I want to hone in on those patients for a bit, because it is important. It's of course important. It's a, I would say, moral duty to take care of your patients that you're serving, and they talk to each other. Right. So if you actually weren't taking care of them,
100%.
or weren't putting out product that they wanted, or good product, or, you know, whatever it is, they would tell each other and they wouldn't be with you.
Absolutely.
Right. You can move the way Canada works, you can move, right? You can get your medicine from somewhere else. But keeping that core group of 3,000 veterans happy is important, not only for them and for you, but for the business overall.
Absolutely. And like when we, you know, like I'm not a veteran myself, but I can listen. And that's the one thing where, you know, when I came into my role is, you take the time, you sit down with veterans, you understand what are the things that are important to them. And it really comes down to quality product and great service. And, you know, the nice thing about all of us at MTL, and especially in our leadership team, we all come from a service background, whether it's professional services, from the restaurant industry, any service sector, we have that in our DNA. And so for us, this is a very natural, easy thing to do, is making sure that you're getting that white glove service. Like once you come into a Canada House clinic, or our Abomedics medical platform, you're going to be taken care of. You know, everything is going to be, we're going to cater to you. We're going to make sure that you have an incredible, you know, patient experience.
Yeah.
And then in addition to that, we made sure, that was the first thing we did, is we looked at our menu, and, you know, it's one of the more better regarded menus in Canada, but we said we can do so much better. And so that's where, you know, we're really big on community and building that community within our industry. And so not only do we obviously provide MTL products, but we call upon all of our friends who are amazing at what they do, whether it's, you know, like say the Rubicon, a Carmel, Motif, Ollie brands, like Rosenthal, insert company here. We have some great producers who have the same approach to the industry as we do. It's really focused on product and making sure it's the best quality of whatever segment of the shelf they take up. We want to make sure it's the best of the best, so they get that selection of great quality product.
When you just ran through those brands and companies, it looks like literally my shelf in there. That's pretty good. I appreciate you making time today, and hopefully this will be the first and not the last time you're on the porch that we see you. We see you a lot, but we want to make sure we get you on as much as possible. Love MTL, love what you're doing, and wish you nothing but luck.
No, thank you very much. I really appreciate you having me on.
Oh, it's great to have you on the porch. And that is it for today's show. We'll be back tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific. I'll be back with our editor-in-chief and our co-founder, Jeremy Burke, probably talking about the implications of the vice presidential pick on the Democratic side on cannabis policy and politics in the States. But that's it for today's show.